This year I wanted to commemorate the 9th anniversary of Skyrim with a bit of a special video. Okay, so yeah, I do realize this video ended up coming out a bit later than anticipated. In fairness, I did start working on it on the 9th anniversary of Skyrim, but either way, so often when talking about Skyrim and specifically Skyrim mods, you get a highlighted list of people's favorite mods. Super subjective, what they like to download, what they think you should download, or even what will make you feel a certain way. This video is not that, as what I want to look at in this video and actually give an explanation of are the top 10 most downloaded mods of Skyrim ever. So now perhaps some of you will watch this and find mods that you are going to start using or will love to start using, but really it's just an interesting list of the top 10 most downloaded mods, and there are without a doubt going to be some surprises on this. As far as my methodology for compiling this list, I didn't just go to Skyrim on Nexus and look at the top 10. Actually, there's some huge differences between that list and the actual winning list, but instead I went through and added up the downloads for Skyrim on Nexus, Skyrim Special Edition on Nexus, Skyrim on Xbox, PlayStation 4, and PC on Bethesda.net, and even mod downloads on Steam, because yes, that's actually still a thing for Skyrim. So I added up total downloads for each of these mods, and now we have a list of what would hypothetically be the top 10 most downloaded mods ever. These not being unique downloads, just total downloads across each of these platforms, and then subscribers on Steam because it doesn't show downloads. So yeah, this actually took a ton of work, so if you guys do want to leave a like or subscribe on this video, that definitely does support the channel, helps support the video. Otherwise, let's start off with what is probably going to be very unsurprising to many of you, with number 10 and Immersive Armors at 16.3 million downloads. And something pretty interesting about this one, it's only available on Nexus for Uldrim and Skyrim Special Edition. No console and specifically Xbox release ever happened. But one of the interesting things about this mod is it actually has a really great carryover number of downloads. So for a lot of these mods, as I'll touch on, they got a ton of downloads for Uldrim, but then didn't really get too many for Skyrim Special Edition. This is the exception. It got 12 million downloads on Uldrim, 4 million on Special Edition, and that is a great carryover. Nonetheless, if you're totally oblivious to what Immersive Armors is, it's going to add over 50 new armors into Skyrim, and even some extras, so other things like helmet, shields, scarves. But really, the main reason this is so popular is the way these items are added, as they're distributed to the other NPCs in the world. Some of the times, it is faction or character specific. You'll just see a character with a much better looking armor that was added in by this mod and isn't necessarily for you unless you just kill that individual character. Some of these are quest specific, so they are intended only for the player, and you will unlock them or the ability to craft them via a certain method, but most often it will diversify the armors you find other people wearing. And even sometimes there are actually different variants of certain armors, which is another nice touch. So across a playthrough, you'll just see more armors, and based off the title, Immersive Armors, many of these fit in super well. Didn't stand out as being something that doesn't belong here. But then moving on from that, another one that will probably come at no surprise is Alternate Start, coming in with 18 million downloads. And one of the interesting parts about this one is it actually wouldn't be on this list if not for consoles, as the Xbox users do bring in about 5 million downloads to that overall number. Alternate Start, as the title suggests, is basically just a way to alternatively start Skyrim. If you don't want the familiar starting screen where you always find yourself in the wagon, this is a much better approach that, one, gives you a easy and quick access into the game overall, but also does provide a variety of options so you could have alternate starts. You could find yourself as a member of a certain guild, as a vampire, or even just as a beggar and very poor, making the start in general a lot more difficult. Another big reason this mod in particular makes its way onto this list is it has a ton of supporting mods, whether it be adding in new and additional alternate starts, so even more scenarios to start off with, or even support for other major mods out there so you could start in that mod's landscape, not even Skyrim at all. And it helps that it's still getting updates in 2020, despite releasing all the way back in 2012. But then coming in at number 7, we do have enhanced blood textures. This is another one that may not be super surprising to many of you, but this mod definitely has a pretty interesting story. At its core and from the start, it just made the blood textures in Skyrim look better, higher quality, more updated, but over time and through subsequent updates that have come over the years, it has now actually have a quite expansive feature set, not only making the blood textures look better, but also adding in a lot more interactions and dynamic aspects to blood in Skyrim. Just right off the bat, when hitting enemies, blood is much more apparent between the splatter. After taking down an enemy, they will actually pool blood on the ground. There are even some cooler effects around this where if you strike an enemy, sometimes they'll actually leave a bit of a blood trail, especially if they run away. It's cool to follow this and find out where they went. And even depending on your kill move, you can have some pretty interesting body effects after a target is deceased. And if that wasn't enough, it doesn't only support humans, but even some of the other creatures or enemies you'll face in Skyrim, which is another really nice touch. And the timeline on this one may be one of the most impressive of all, as it actually came out on the 12th of November 2011, one day after Skyrim, and received updates as of September in 2020 to some of the optional files. But then one I was actually pretty surprised to find on this list is ApachiiSkyHair, which more or less is going to be a hair mod for Skyrim that adds in a wide variety of hairstyles from Oblivion, from The Sims, from The Witcher. As far as beautification mods for Skyrim do go, it is a bit more unique or broad appealing in that it actually does impact both males and females and even some of the other races in Skyrim, which is a very nice touch. Otherwise, it's a pretty simple one. And you might be wondering, okay, why does a hair mod find itself so highly listed on this list? I think some of the big reasons are the variety of character types it does support, but even further, there are a wide variety of other mods that do require this one. So maybe you weren't trying to download a hair mod directly, but rather trying to download one of the many other visual improving mods for Skyrim. Some of these improving the presets of characters in the game, some actually being character presets so you can make your character look like somebody else. But another one that really needs no introduction that you've probably heard of at some point or another is Caliente's beautiful body enhancer with 19.17 million downloads for Skyrim. We're almost breaking 20 million. So at its core, CBBE is actually pretty simple. It'll replace the female body textures for adult females in Skyrim. So this has two benefits. It does improve the visuals of other characters, other females you'll find in Skyrim. Their skin will just look better, but also of course for you and your own character. And you can definitely notice some big upgrades on the skin overall from this one. It's a little bit too perfect, but that can be customized, and that's one of the other big benefits of this mod. Using Body Slide, which is a widely available tool, you can really tweak this body shape to look like just about anything you want. So that's how sometimes you see extreme proportions one way or another, but there's a lot of tweaking and customization you could do with this one. So now as to why this is so popular, one of the big reasons is just that customization aspect. People want a deeper level of customization for their character, but even further, and I think for some people this is a bigger reason, there are a wide variety of other outfit mods out there that do support or at points require CBBE. So similar to the last mod, I'm sure many of these downloads do come from somebody wanting to download this cool or cute looking outfit and then downloading CBBE as a result of that. Although an interesting one, it definitely seems like this has fallen out of popularity more so than some of these other mods. Other options like UNP definitely seem to be in a similar vein, a similar category as CBBE, but also a little bit simpler. Maybe not having as much customization, but some people just don't care about that. And there's a ton of outfit mods supporting UNP and not CBBE. But really, I think it does come down to a preference thing first and foremost, and there are a ton of mods converting armors to a CBBE body type. But then from there, another one that's probably not super surprising is a quality world map, which is the first mod to cumulatively break 20 million downloads. In Skyrim by default, the map leaves a bit to be desired. Some people want something that looks better, some people don't like how you can't really see the roads. A quality world map is simply going to fix that. It comes with a variety of map options, and just right off the bat, make the map look better, but also some of the finer details like roads are a bit more apparent. You could have the clouds be less prominent, so you could actually see the map you're trying to. There's some custom versions where you could have partial roads, full roads, or even things like a paper map, which is definitely pretty popular. And this one's pretty easy to explain. It's been around for a long time. It just kind of works, becoming the definitive map option for many, and a lot of people look at this map for a long time and just want it to look better or even at points a bit different. But then we do have what may be the most interesting entry on this list with Skyrim HD 2K textures. So really at its core, it's a very simple mod. It'll retexture and overhaul the visuals of several things in Skyrim. There's a focus on some of the towns and cities, but even other things like road textures, decks, buildings. You've definitely seen or heard of retexture mods for the game, and this is another one of them. But how does it make it to fourth on this list, and how is it the only broad world applying texture mod on this list? Well, some of the crazy stats on this mod. It came out all the way back on the 18th of November 2011, but really got the bulk of its downloads in 2012. It's actually the most downloaded mod ever on the Skyrim Nexus, just the Oldrim Nexus, and it's not actually available on any other platform. So all the 23.5 million downloads this mod have came from Oldrim, and the last update was all the way back in 2015. And basically, I think it just was super popular as being one of the definitive texture overhaul mods that applied to many textures in the world close to release. So as Skyrim had millions of players back in 2012, they were looking for a good texture mod, this was the option. And it's pretty crazy to see how many downloads this has, even more than things like SkyUI for Oldrim. But one, it's not actually available for Skyrim Special Edition, and over overall, there are just way better texture mods out there right now. Although yes, I'm sure this does have an active audience or people that really enjoy this one. If you look up guides on which texture mods to download to overhaul your game, this one is rarely at the top. So overall, yeah, just a real testament to the powerhouse that Skyrim was on release and just how many people are playing it and trying to mod it to look better. I feel like even the name with 2K textures is a big remnant of that. And actually a pretty interesting observation overall, the top downloaded mod on Skyrim Special Edition Nexus is also a texture mod. This beating out everything else in cumulative downloads, but it's nowhere on this list because it's not actually one of the top 10 most downloaded mods across all platforms. It's just the top downloaded mod on Special Edition Nexus. But then one that kind of crawled its way to the top, we also do have the Unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch. And the reason I say that is this has the most widely distributed downloads of any of these mods. The vast majority of mods featured in this video, and especially this high up on the list, have over 10 million downloads on one platform. This at most only has 7 million downloads on a single platform, but it's available on basically every platform. And it's almost evenly distributed, getting similar downloads on Oldham Nexus, SE Nexus, and even Xbox One. And if you're not familiar with the unofficial patch for Skyrim and Special Edition, more or less it just fixes a bunch of bugs that Bethesda didn't. Some of these being minor, some of these being some more major things. For a lot of people, it's just become a must download. You want your game to be less buggy. You don't want to have a save corruption or a major issue while playing the game. And I think for a lot of more casual players, they just know, okay, I'm going to download this mod, maybe a couple of others, and then have a playthrough. But again, it is pretty interesting to see how distributed the downloads are overall, especially compared to the next one on this list with 4's new idols in Skyrim. This having 27.2 million downloads in total, only being available for Oldham and SE on Nexus. That's an interesting one. I'm actually kind of surprised to find it so high on this list. More or less, what 4's new idols in Skyrim is going to do is make it so you could have custom and different animations in Skyrim. So without getting overly technical on this, there are going to be various behavior files that go in a certain order with Skyrim, and 4's new idols will allow you to add or edit things in those behavior files and then patch things so Skyrim still understands this and actually works accordingly. And even further, it makes it so several different animation mods can all work in tandem due to the way it's set up. So on its own, it really doesn't do much, but it's going to be a wonderful resource for other modders out there. Think of it very similarly to Skyrim's script extender. So of course, there are a wide variety of mods for Skyrim that add in new things that affect animations. As you're seeing in the background, there are some things around eating. There are even some weapon mods or combat focused mods that rely on this. So combat having different animations or different weapons having new and unique animations. And although that does definitely make up a subset of this, it also seems like a huge portion of the audience are around the more lewd mods or the lewd side of Skyrim modding. Some of the different skeletons or even just pose or physics mods. So if you want your character to be very well animated in certain areas of their body, you do have to download 4's new idols first and then download those other mods atop of it. So the reason it finds itself so high up on this list is it's such a versatile base for a wide variety of modding scenes. If you want to make parts of your character bounce up and down wildly, this is the mod you're going to have to download. If you want to make combat seem a bit more interesting or even dynamic at points, this is the mod you're going to have to download. Or even just miscellaneous animations for eating and many other things. And this is just a small look at some of the mods that do support this. I definitely am still pretty surprised to find it so high up on this list as the second most downloaded mod of all time, but you can definitely understand how it got there. And then last but not least, another one that is really not that surprising is SkyUI. By default, the UI and interface in Skyrim is very frustrating to use. There are menus upon menus, you have to get pretty deep into things to actually traverse it, and just the layout doesn't show you a ton of information on your screen at any given time. There's a lot of scrolling and a lot of diving deeper to get the full picture. SkyUI is basically going to overhaul each of these menus, making them way easier to navigate, actually just presenting you a lot more information, but even further adding in additional features, more sorting, the ability to actually search your inventory or search NPCs' inventories. This affects not only this screen, but also things like looting and trade screens, and even things like the magic screen, and also does apply to some of those on-screen effects you could see in the corner. And although that's one of the core aspects of SkyUI, and probably why it was so popular right off the bat, it also is the mod configuration menu. You probably heard of this, especially if you come from Fallout modding, basically being a menu where you can tweak settings and all of your various mods. And for one reason or another, in the Skyrim scene, these two mods are one. The UI mod and the mod configuration menu are one download. So a lot of mods out there either require SkyUI if you want to tweak your mod at all, or it's just the easiest way to do so, otherwise having to rely on items or spells. And SkyUI really got to its popularity, I think, just by being another one of those mods that you just download. Even if you don't know a ton about the game, it's an easy download that makes the inventory screens look better. The vast majority of downloads for this one one definitely come from Uldrum at 23 million. On SE, it only actually has about 6 million, which is still a massive number, one of the top downloaded mods ever, and even more testament that it's just a must download for many. It's the only Steam mod to actually have over 1 million subscribers. And it is pretty interesting in that it's not available on consoles. It's the only mod to break 30 million downloads cumulatively, but it would probably be a lot higher if this was something that could be on consoles. But either way, that is a look at the top 10 most downloaded mods for Skyrim. I'm sure for some of you, some of these were actually pretty surprising. If you look at this list in this video and compare it to the top 10 most downloaded mods for Skyrim Special Edition, which is where most people are now, most people have moved on from Uldrum, these lists are very, very different. The top 10 most downloaded mods definitely has a lot of legacy in those Uldrum users and the original boosts that it saw from some of those early releases. The vast majority of these mods have been around for 8-9 years now. With that said, as always again, I thank you all for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this video, but until next time, I hope to see you all later.